Are you considering having or setting up a holding company or a group of companies in Nigeria? Maybe you want to expand your business venture across sectors, or you're looking to raise funds or as a way of investing into your company. In this video, I'm going to be walking you through the step-by-step process for registering a group of companies and a holding company in Nigeria. Hello, my name is Cynthia Tishon. I'm a corporate commercial lawyer here at Lex-Praxis, where we help entrepreneurs set up legally sound and protected businesses within Nigeria. Now, before I go into the topic of today, please do well to subscribe to this channel so that you can follow up with us and gain more insightful tips about the legal aspects of doing business in Nigeria. Now, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that a holding company and a group of companies are two separate kinds of company structures in Nigeria. And I'm going to be explaining what they're all about and the procedures for having them set up. Now, what are the major characteristics of a holding company and a group of companies? Now, a holding company structure is a separate legal entity that is established not for the purpose of carrying out any form of business, but they are established primarily to serve as majority shareholders in their subsidiaries, right? So when you see a holding company, that holding company is established. Just know that that holding company is a majority shareholder. At least they have not less than 50% shares ownership in its subsidiaries, right? A typical examples of holding companies in Nigeria is FBN Holdings, right? FBN Holdings is a holding company or a parent company to subsidiaries such as First Bank of Nigeria. We also have FBN Quest Limited. We also have FBN Securities, right? And many other subsidiaries under the FBN Holdings. Now, FBN Holdings um, is a parent company in the sense that they are majority shareholders in all these subsidiaries that I mentioned. So FBN Holdings is a majority shareholder in First Bank of Nigeria, as well as all other subsidiaries. Another example is Stanbic IBTC Holdings PLC. That's another popular entity in Nigeria. Stanbic IBTC Holdings PLC is a parent company to many subsidiaries such as the popular Stanbic IBTC Bank that we have. You also have Stanbic Pension Managers. You also have Stanbic IBTC Insurance and Stanbic IBTC Asset Management Limited. Now, that means that Stanbic IBTC Holdings PLC owns at least not less than 50%, not less than 50% shareholdings in all these subsidiaries that I mentioned. Another example or practical example, though not in Nigeria, is the Alphabet Incorporated. Now, Alphabet Incorporated is a parent company to many subsidiaries that you and I are familiar about, such as Google, YouTube, right? So Google is a subsidiary to Alphabet Incorporated. YouTube is also a subsidiary to that, right? Now, I hope I've been able to explain what a holding company is all about. Now, a group of companies, on the other hand, is a separate legal structure or a separate entity that is consisted of at least not less than three other companies that have common membership. In other words, for a group of company already has at least not less than three other subsidiaries that are set up as limited liability companies, and each of these subsidiaries have the same person or persons as directors and shareholders in all three subsidiaries, right? So that is the difference. While in that of the holding, there is no need or emphasis on common membership, but in that of a group of company, there is a lot of emphasis on common membership, right? Now, why is setting up a holding or a group of company structure important, right? There are many reasons. For instance, business expansion and diversification. And this is a very common reason. So let's say, for instance, you own a business or you started your business venture in the pharmaceutical industry and you've been there for years, you've done a lot for yourself, and you feel like you want to diversify or venture into another sector. Let's say, for instance, you want to go into the hospitality space, you want to go into the agriculture space as well, and you want these new sectors you're going into to operate um, independently from the already existing structure that is in place. You might seriously want to consider setting up a holding structure or a group structure in such scenario, right? Also, it also serves as an avenue for tax planning. What that means is that it's not mandatory for your several subsidiaries to operate in one space or one location, right? So your subsidiaries can take advantage of locations that are tax havens or that are tax friendly, depending on what that subsidiary, the kind of business that that subsidiary is venturing into, or what they intend to achieve as a subsidiary. So people use that holding or group structure to maximize tax exemptions and tax benefits in various jurisdictions, right? Another reason why this kind of structure could be something that is beneficial for you is in terms of protecting assets and limiting risks. So, like I said earlier, the common denominator for the group and the holding structure is that they all have subsidiaries, right? And these subsidiaries exist as separate or different legal entities. Now, what that does is that in a situation where a subsidiary is exposed to maybe debt or any kind of financial risk or responsibility, maybe they owe creditors, or maybe a judgment has been given against a subsidiary to pay a very huge sum to its creditors, the other subsidiaries will not be held to account or will not be called into account when it comes to discharging that obligation because they operate separately from each other. So that subsidiary that is in debt or exposed or is suffering some kind of financial exposure, negative financial exposure, will be left to, solve its problem or discharge its financial obligations to its creditors. That's just an example. So that way, the assets of the other subsidiaries are protected from unnecessary exposure to risks, right? And the last but not the least advantage of setting up a group or a holding structure is that it's easy to raise funds as subsidiaries, right? So subsidiaries can leverage on the goodwill, the already existing goodwill of other subsidiaries or even the parent company when it comes to raising funds from investors. Let's take, for instance, FBN holding structure. So let's say, for instance, First Bank wants to raise funds and they want to raise funds from the public. So an initial call for IPO to members of the public for the purpose of raising funds. It's easy to invest in First Bank because they've been in business for a long time and they also have other ventures. So there is that confidence that it gives investors that, okay, it's okay to put my money here because they've been here, they have an already existing track record, right? When you take a look at their other subsidiaries, so my money is not going to go anywhere, or my money is not going to, face unnecessary risk exposure, right? So it's easy to raise funds as subsidiaries, or it's easy for the subsidiaries to raise funds, banking on the existing goodwill of either the parent company or other companies or other subsidiaries rather, right? So let's talk about how to register, or the procedures and requirements for registering a group of companies or a holding company. Like I said earlier, a holding company structure is totally different from a group of company structure, and so the procedure and requirement for setting them up in Nigeria is totally different. And I'm going to be mentioning the requirements separately. So let's start with that of a holding company. First of all, you must obtain the consent of the Registrar General to use the word holding through your name reservation. Like I said, um, the the word holding and group are restricted names. You can't just use the name. They are restricted in the sense that you must obtain the official and formal consent of the Registrar General of the Corporate Affairs Commission before you can proceed to register an entity with the name or with the phrase holding or group in it. The second requirement for setting up a holding company is ensure that the annual returns of the subsidiaries are up to date. Like I said earlier, a holding company must be established, must have at least two existing subsidiaries. So before the holding company is formed, what this means is before the holding company is formed, there must be already existing subsidiaries in place, right? They must have existed, they're already registered, they're already set up. Now, these subsidiaries must file their annual returns up to date. That is very important. Otherwise, the application to register the holding company will not be granted. Another thing is you also need to provide evidence of the existence of registration of two or more subsidiaries with all being active and in operation. I just said that earlier, right? And next, provide statement by the board of directors of the proposed holding company stating that the company will take up not more take up will take up more than 50% of the nominal value of share capital of each subsidiaries within 90 days of incorporation. In simple terms, what that is saying is that there has to be a statement of the board of directors of this holding company that is about to be formed, stating that after it is being registered or after it's been incorporated, they are going to, within 90 days after registration, take up at least 50% or more ownership in the other subsidiaries that were existing, right? Then there is also the requirement for compliance with Section 733 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act. This section only applies to certain sectors such as the banking sector, insurance companies, benefit societies, and the like. So that section requires them to publish a statement about the share capital, the financials of the company in their office premises from time to time. So if your business is falling within that sector, you need to take note of this compliance requirements. And then after obtaining the official consent of the Registrar General and having satisfied all these requirements, you can now proceed to register your holding company like you're registering any new company, right? We have explained the procedures and requirements for setting up registering a company in Nigeria in a previous video. I will share the link in the comment section so that you can make reference to it if you are curious about the procedures and requirements for having your company registered in Nigeria. But in summary, registering a company in Nigeria just entails, apart from the consent now to use the name holding now, it entails preparing or completing the application forms, which includes the memorandum and articles of association, details of the directors and shareholders, and then paying the prescribed fee for the registration, and then obtaining your registration documents, which generally consists of the certificate of incorporation, the status report, and the memorandum and articles of association of that company, right? Now, let's talk about the requirements for registering or how to register a group of companies in Nigeria. Um, it's quite similar but a little bit different, right? So the first step, confirm that you have a minimum of 3 companies already formed, right, to make up the group. And each of these companies must be limited liability companies. It cannot be a business name. The subsidiaries must be limited liability companies, and they must share common ownership of shareholders with up-to-date annual returns filing. So in summary, what this means is that before you start registering the entity, a group, a separate entity as a group, there must be at least not less than 3 companies, limited liability companies already existing and in operation. These companies must be already registered, and the annual returns of these companies must be filed up to date. These companies also must also be made up of the same individuals or individual as a shareholder, director of these companies, right? So you can't have one director here, a different director in one company, or different set of directors and shareholders in one subsidiary, and the other one is made up of different directors and shareholders. That's why it's important to make plans ahead of time if you are actually considering doing this or embarking on this kind of structure, right? Now, the second requirement is obtain the consent of the Registrar General to use the word group through reservation, right? So yes, using the word group, like I said earlier, is a restricted name. You need to get that formal consent to be able to register any company or entity with the word group in it. Also provide evidence of the existence and registration of three or more subsidiaries with common ownership. I said that earlier. So there must be three, at least not less than three already existing companies with common ownership, and you must provide evidence of that. Also provide evidence of a resolution by each individual company consenting to the union as a group. Also, you are to provide a statement that the share capital of the group will not be less than the highest capital of any of the subsidiary companies seeking to be formed as in the group. So what this means is, let's say there are three subsidiaries. Subsidiary A is registered or incorporated with 5 million shares. Subsidiary B is incorporated with 10 million shares. Subsidiary C is incorporated with 100 million shares. This group that you are about to form must have a share capital of not less than 100 million shares. So it has to be 100 million shares and above. So you must provide a statement saying that the share capital must not be below what is already existing or the current share capital of either of these subsidiaries, right? And then there is the compliance with Section 733 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, like I stated earlier, that it applies to banks, insurance companies, and benefit societies and the likes. They are required to publish a statement about their financials and basically the share or statement of share capital of the company and the financials of the company from time to time. And now, upon satisfying these requirements and obtaining the official consent of the Registrar General, you can now proceed to register the entity that is the group entity, right? Like you're registering a new company. And like I said earlier, it just entails filling out relevant forms, paying the prescribed fees, and getting your registration documents, which includes certificates, the status reports, and the memorandum and articles of association. Now, here are practical tips to consider when setting up either a holding structure or a group structure. Number one, decide early what business will fall within the group, right? Like I said, the reason why you consider this type of structure is for diversification. So you want to ensure that, okay, these activities will go under this company, these activities will go under this company. So decide that on time. It's very important. And then get proper, legal drafting for documents for purpose of governance structure, right? Also consider effective tax planning strategies before registration. In our previous video, I shared common mistakes that businesses in Nigeria make. It's important that you watch that video, and that will give you an insight as to why you need to start considering tax planning if you're going into this structure, right? And also, above all, just seek professional guidance to avoid future restructuring costs. I've come across incidents where people, they already have a lot of business names, right? And then they want to set up a group structure. And then they realize that, oh, you can't set up a group with business names. So you have to start restructuring that business name, maybe upgrading it to a limited liability company, and meeting all the other requirements. It becomes more expensive. But when you start planning ahead, you already have insight that, okay, setting up a holding or a group structure requires that there has to be limited liability companies, like two or more, as subsidiaries. So that informs you ahead of time, and you start incorporating those subsidiaries as limited liability companies. That's just an example of the kind of cost you avoid when you get professional help even before you start or undertake setting up the group structure. So please consider professional guidance for the legal aspect and also the tax compliance aspects of setting up or operating or forming a group or a holding structure. Now, whether you are an investor who is looking to diversify his or her business venture, or you're a foreign investor who is looking to strategically launch your business venture in Nigeria, a group or a holding structure could be a very beneficial structure for you to consider depending on your overall business goals. So if you are ready to set up a group or a holding structure within Nigeria and you need professional guidance or expertise in getting this done, feel free to reach out to us through any of the contact information that will be displayed on the screen, or you can contact us in the link in the description section of our channel to speak with us privately, and we will attend to you. We have helped several entrepreneurs and businesses with setting up their group or holding structure, and we'll be glad to also advise you and also help you make your dreams come true. Now, if you have any questions from this, everything that I've said in this video, feel free to leave them in the comment section and we will attend to them as we see them. And finally, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please do us a favor, share this video. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe to this channel for more insightful legal tips for doing business in Nigeria, and don't forget to also share a comment. We would appreciate them. And see you again in my next video.